Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us once again for our daily English news edition. I'm Daniel Cook, your host, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. The electoral reform brought the leaders of the majority and the opposition together today for a meeting called by the coalition of local observers. They all supported the idea that the reform should be consensual. Prime Minister Rama, the Assembly Speaker Mehta, and the Democratic Chairman Basha highlighted some important issues like the funding of electoral advertisement campaigns and the purchasing of votes. Mr. Mehta expressed the hope that the reform will be realized in a timely manner. Commenting on the elections held through the years, he said that there has been progress from one election to another, but according to him, electoral corruption is a continuing problem. What is needed, according to Mehta, is a transparent system. The Assembly Speaker then turned the attention to the current election system, asking for a partial intervention in the electoral lists. On his part, the Prime Minister gave assurance that the electoral reform will not be a product of the majority alone. He made the following statement: "The first obstacle we need to overcome is the depoliticization of the electoral commissions. This step has been requested by the internationals, and we are still in time to do this. Consensus is necessary for this reform. We also need to discuss the issue of electoral campaign advertisements. It is the most expensive part of the reform, and we are interested in discussing the issue with all the parties. I also want to emphasize the issue of electoral corruption, which has been reduced in comparison to previous years, but remains a concern, especially in the poor areas," said the Prime Minister. The issue of funding for the parties and the use of the money in the political campaigns was a concern raised by the Democratic Chairman Basha. He said, "Connection with crime is a big problem. Aside from the issue of advertisements, about which I agree with the chairman of the Socialist Party, the funding of the parties is a problem that needs to be treated in the electoral reform. It is urgent that we start dealing with electoral corruption and find a radical, sustainable, and long-term solution to this problem," said Mr. Basha. Present at the conference, the U.S. Ambassador Donald Liu was critical of Albania's electoral process. He spoke of the importance of transparency in the party funds. He asked the political leaders to not include the names of corrupt or incriminated people on their list of candidates. "When I visited the voting centers in Albania," he said, "I saw a group of young gangsters outside intimidating the voters. Many people gave us evidence of vote buying and familial voting. And as we know, some of the candidates had a shameful criminal past," said Mr. Liu. Other international reps placed the same emphasis on a rapid and comprehensive electoral reform as a condition for Albania's progress on the integration path. President Nishani was also called to participate in the discussion about electoral corruption, but he did not attend the meeting. The U.S. ambassador applauded the presence of both majority and opposition leaders and their willingness to cooperate on the reform. The Democratic Chairman Basha has intensified his meetings to prepare for the possibility of early elections. On the hunt for new allies, Mr. Basha held a meeting today with the head of the Party of Unity for Human Rights. The party officially belongs to the ruling coalition, but they seem to have some disagreements with Prime Minister Rama over the division of powers after the elections. After that, Mr. Basha met with his ally in the Republican Party, Fatmir Mediu. He discussed the actions of the opposition and the protests against the government. Somewhat earlier today, he held a meeting with the chairman of the Democratic Party branches. They discussed their plans for upcoming protests, which will come after intensified meetings with the citizens to present the Democratic Party platform. It's reported that Mr. Basha motivated the branch chairman to prepare for early elections, asking them to thoroughly organize the party structures. The chairman of the branches were also instructed to initiate local protests against the government. Today, the Constitutional Court reviewed a complaint submitted by the business owners against the law on tax procedure. After reviewing the matter, the court decided to leave the suspension of the law in place, despite the disagreement of the government. A team of judges listened to representatives of both the business owners and the government and ruled that the taxes imposed on businesses in Albania are 10 times higher than the other countries of the region. The government reps repeated their claims that the heavy fines are meant to fight against informality. On the other side, the head of the Association of Traders, who appealed the law to the Constitutional Court, declared that it sent around 2,000 businesses to bankruptcy while it was in power. He announced that a second complaint about the criminal code will be submitted to the court on Friday. The Minister of Agriculture has requested political consensus to evacuate families that have built their homes on agricultural lands because they are at risk of floods. According to Minister Panariti, these illegally constructed buildings are the primary reason that Albania has so much flood damage every year. Other contributors are waterworks that do not function and blocked up drainage channels. The Foreign Commission and the Commission for Productive Activity have discussed an agreement with the EBRD to allocate €100 million in loans to the farmers. At today's meeting of the Foreign Commission, the Socialist MP Ben Blushi said that this investment could be put to better use, serving the country's needs. He spoke about inefficiencies in agriculture, like the purchase of flour in foreign markets when we can produce it ourselves. Mr. Blushi said that Albania is spending €800 million per year in foreign markets and importing most of its produce. He believes that this policy must be changed. The Minister of Justice has requested an investigation of every official from the Immovable Property Registration Office if any violations are found. After an increased number of denouncements by the State Supreme Audit and a large number of bribery complaints from the citizens, the minister warned that there will be harsh penalties for any officials caught abusing their duties. He said, "There will be no tolerance for employees who break the deadlines. Anyone caught with violations will no longer be working for the Property Registration Office. The same will also be for anyone who solicits a bribe to conduct the duty of the state. I have asked the prosecution to increase its attention," said Manjani. The minister gave orders to the property registration offices all around the country to cooperate with the legalization agency and to draft a common map. He clarified that the property titles will be issued based upon the map prepared by the legalization agency, and that it will be the only map. Lastly, Minister Manjani announced that there will be a competition for the jobs at the property registration offices in order to improve the quality of service and work. The new bill on public security was discussed at the Security Commission today amid accusations by the Democrats. The Democratic Party is saying that the new bill on public security is evidence that the government has failed to establish order. The new bill will obligate business owners to install security cameras in their shops, and the Democrats say that this is equivalent to turning public security into a concession. Several Democratic MPs accused the Interior Minister Samir Tahiri of having criminal connections. He responded that similar laws already exist in other European countries, and it's an important measure for increasing public security. He defended the bill, saying that it will help the police to discover and prevent criminal offenses. The law will be accompanied by a number of changes to the criminal code, and it obligates 6 categories of public and private subjects to take additional security measures. Those categories include businesses with more than 50 employees, companies that transport risky materials, public transportation companies, subjects that deal with gambling, and subjects who administer schools or kindergartens. That's the end of our edition for this evening. Thanks again for watching, and please join us again at 6 p.m. tomorrow for more news in English. Thanks, and have a great night.